Each week, we welcome to our NfG stage one of our highly talented members or special guests with something designed to help you and your business. Our next guest enjoys consuming knowledge with a keen passion for learning. Her interesting, long and diverse academic journey began at university in 1988 studying German. Not fully finding her true calling, in 1999 she decided, while still working, to spend the next 4 years studying law. She pursued yet more education and qualifications, including a TEFL course in 2009, a PR and public affairs diploma in 2013, before deciding to start an MBA in 2014, while simultaneously enjoying a variety of other courses, such as project management. In 2019, however, she concluded her MBA, specialising in sustainability, an interesting field indeed. Working in business consulting, she took a keen interest in the top motivator of many business owners and individuals: money. Since the start of 2020, before lockdown began, she became established as a self-employed financial advisor at St. James's Place, taking her whole host of skills in business, mathematics, law, and more, albeit perhaps not maximising her skills in German. And as a financial planner, she focuses on business professionals, executives, and owners and their families, in line with her vision to help people shift their perspective about managing money so that they see it as a tool to help them achieve the exciting life they want rather than a necessary evil. Today, she comes to us with a talk simply called Developing a Money Mindset. Here at NfG, we bring to you Alison Jarvis. Good morning, Alison.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Richard, and thank you very much for the warm welcome. I was really pleasantly surprised when you started talking about the impact that you've all had. 53,701 people have been impacted by NfG, so that's incredible. So I hope today that I can give you some more food for thought about various aspects of money and a money mindset, and hopefully it'll be something a little bit different from the graphs and the stats that sometimes we tend to in the sector trot out. So I'm going to be sharing some slides with you. I hope you don't mind. Thank you very much for allowing me to do this. Why would you listen to me? Well, I guess it's probably not the German language speaking that has done it for me, but my background, I've got 30 years in the commercial world doing a variety of different things, as Richard has already highlighted. So in terms of my credentials, I have got that business background, but I've also got something very specific around the finance piece that has been a common thread. I sat my maths and stats O-levels early. I went and did solicitors accounting as a lawyer, and I studied financial management and money management on my MBA with a specific orientation towards sustainability. And obviously I've been through and I'm working with the fabulous people on the St. James Place Academy. So that's really how I've arrived at this particular point. My life experience has straddled different jurisdictions and meeting people from the destitute right through to ultra high net worth individuals. So I've got a rich understanding of how people sit. And the common denominator is actually about people looking at money and common kind of misconceptions about it. My values are inclusivity, integrity, knowledge, quality, and a people focus. As Richard identified, I help those types of people with a variety of types of planning needs, and I deliver a plan and peace of mind ultimately. But really today is about listening to and hearing and reflecting on some of the reasons that people approach money in a variety of different ways, and maybe there's a way that you might want to tweak the way you personally think about money. So the first point I'd like to raise really is about your personal history and how that creates the money mindset. So the purpose is to explore how our approach to money impacts our finances and how to rethink it. So let's have a look at that for a moment. By way of an anecdote, my mother is a trained singer, and she has a very completely and utterly otherworldly approach to things. She's very intuitive, she's very, very creative, and she's never really earned any money because it was never on her radar. It was just not something she even thought about. And my brother-in-law is a black British Jamaican, and he has got the approach to money that is the banks are for white people. So these two people have got very different approaches to money based on their own personal narrative that's going on. So how we need to rethink is becoming aware of that narrative that we're telling ourselves. You know, is this really true? We need to question that. So that's the first food for thought. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Second point, we have money scripts, and it follows on very much from that. So people who are thinking negatively towards money, perhaps they think that it's for everyone else and not for them. Perhaps they think it is sort of an evil in the world rather than something that can be used as a tool. These scripts are constantly running through our heads, very much like a personal development world where we might have some negative thoughts about ourselves. We also have a very, very well-developed thinking around money. And part of the reason I want to talk about money mindset is because talking about money itself is a way of sort of removing a little bit of that taboo. Money is a tool like other tools, and it's good to think of it in those terms. Also, you'll note on the slide I've put the role of luck, and I'll want us to think about that a bit more. The reason I mention that is because there's so much that is stated in personal development world about taking responsibility, which I fully agree with. But sometimes what we don't think, and what makes us somewhat judgmental of ourselves and others, is that luck doesn't play a part. Well, luck really, really does play a part. Where you're born is highly relevant to your financial future and your approach to money and that mindset. So someone in a paddy field is going to think potentially differently to someone who's been born with immense privilege, like many of us have done in this country particularly. So that's something I'd like you to reflect on. And just to sort of as an aside, I know Michael Dwale did put a lovely link in the chat box about money personalities, and that's really worth checking out. So on that note, I would suggest you take a look at that if you want to delve into this stuff more. The next slide I want to look at talks really about envy and comparison. Now, this obviously comes into play when you're looking at your lives in general, but it also comes into play, particularly how people perceive money to be manifested in other people's lives. They might look at someone and assume a variety of things, and that's exacerbated, of course, by social media. So to rethink that, what we need to be doing is really focusing on our own needs, not in a selfish way, but identifying what our own needs are rather than trying to emulate other people's, because that really takes away from your own goals. It puts the energy in the wrong place. And we also need to question what's true. And we also need to question, are they doing it right? And I know as an NfGer, you will be thinking, you know, how I use my money, how I make my money, they are important. You know, you want to do good things, you want to impact in the right way, you want to earn your money in an ethical way. So all of those things are something that are better to focus on potentially than looking externally at the trappings there. And you can create your own definitions of what wealthy looks like and what rich looks like and what success looks like and what money means to you. I was working, an anecdote for this is actually, I was working in the developing world, and my billionaire boss basically was going to bring someone on board who was wearing a very nice suit. His reason for recruiting him was in fact that he was wearing a very nice suit. So that's fabulous. nothing wrong with a nice suit. But actually, if you drill down a little bit, it turned out the guy was just wearing a very nice suit and there wasn't much behind it. So I guess it's about viewing yourself and others with a little bit more open-mindedness, and your view about your own financial well-being and others with a little bit more sort of tolerance and kind of curiosity rather than judgment. So the next slide is a bit more practical when we're looking at what people then do with their money. So they've got the mindset, they've got the narratives, and they've got the scripts. And then that sometimes plays out into actual behaviors. So they may be spending a lot, they may be saving a lot, they may be doing a little bit of both, or anywhere on that spectrum. And I think it's important to sort of evaluate and sort of reflect briefly on, you know, where do you sit on that? And is that taking you in the right direction? So do you spend, do you save, do you monitor any of those things? The impact of doing so can be that you can take advantage of the power of compound interest in a way that you wouldn't if you're just spending all your money. And the meaning of wealth, we've just talked about rich versus wealthy a little bit in the previous slide. Rich can often look like all the trappings. Wealth is actually often the reverse. Wealth is about actually not spending money. That's how people get wealthy. It's actually not spending money. So whilst those people may be able to afford their Lamborghini, their Porsche or what have you, actually it's not spending money that actually very often gets people to where they want to go, and doing something else with it instead. So leading on to the next slide, we look at another spectrum, I like to call it, which is from scarcity through to abundance. And this plays into the scripts that we play in our head. And certainly there have been many people in my life who have been very, very, I guess, negative in the way they view money. Certainly in a poverty setting, money can be perceived as, you know, absolutely necessary, of course, which it is. But there's very little risk around that, and it's very hand to mouth, no long-term thinking. And what we really need to shift to is something a little bit different, where we see risk and opportunity rather than just risk. But we're not so positive that we've got all opportunity and no risk. So it's finding and striking that balance, and moving from a survivalist perspective to an optimistic and more realistic perspective based on your own goals and your own thinking. Very often the word abundance is associated with personal development, and it can be really positive and great. One of the things that isn't so great is sometimes it can start trying to set the goals for you about what's right for you. It might say, unless you're a billionaire, then you're not a worthy human, or unless you're earning X, you're not a worthy human. When in fact, actually, you can be a very worthy human and be financially resilient, and you can be doing great things in the world, which a lot of people here, probably all of you at NfG, are striving, seeking, and aspiring to do, which is fantastic. So recently, St James Place brought into our webinar series a wonderful American behavioral psychologist called Daniel Crosby, and he was talking about emotional spending and other biases that we all have as humans. Now, we might like to think we don't have them, but of course we do. We're all guilty of some of these. So how do these actually reflect in terms of your money mindset? Well, we've all got an ego. We need an ego to feed ourselves. Ego can be a positive thing in certain contexts. But unfortunately, us humans tend to get a little bit over egotistical at times. And as a result of that, sorry, my computer's going crazy. As a result of that, what it can actually do is set about behaviors that aren't helpful to us or others. So we might be overconfident in the way that we think, oh, don't worry, everything will work out fine. I don't need to look after myself. It's fine. It'll all happen. You know, I've got a good skill set. I'll be able to do this. When we don't know enough about it, for example, investing or financial planning in general. Emotionally, we like to think we're quite neutral. We like to think we're capable of that. but very often most of our decisions are made on an emotional basis, and that leads to a reaction to situation in our lives that can impact our money and our behaviors with money. Our attention, well, very often we're very in the now, which on the one hand is good because we need to be present with the people that we're engaging with. Awesome. But on top of that, it is good to have that longer range view, because actually not having a longer range view can really impact what happens to you in your later life financially, because you haven't thought about it until it's really quite late in the day. It's never too late, it has to be said, but it can lead to behaviors that are more put your money in a mattress rather than the markets. It can lead to behaviors where you're not balancing the here and the now. So that's pretty important as well to be thinking of. And it's perhaps worth reflecting on which of those have you been guilty of. I don't know if it's just me, but I suspect it is. And I'm probably been guilty of all of those at any one given point in time. So yeah, that's an important thing to be aware of. And Daniel Crosby, by the way, is a great person to follow on social media. It's some brilliant content. So really, we're just taking it down to the last few slides, really. Money is very personal. As you've seen, it's our personal narrative that creates the way we think about money. And then it's those scripts that we make familiar in our own heads that we need to address. But our context is also our own. As humans, we're not very good at predicting how we'll change in the future. When Richard talked about me this morning, when he introduced me, it's like, yeah, she started out doing languages, you went into law, she did projects, she did this, that, and the other. That is how much people change over a lifetime in terms of what they get to do, what they choose to do, what they ultimately enjoy doing. I think, and people don't really know how to predict the future. Of course they don't. So that happens with money as well. Our situations are constantly evolving. So it's important to talk about money, and it's important to plan. That really is the key. And a final slide is looking at behavior versus smart. So we've had a look at our money mindset and how that is formed. We've looked at how that can play into the behaviors in our lives that can impact our financial resilience and our financial behaviors. But let's look at that compared to those smarts. So very often people, one of the narratives that people say is, oh, I'm not bright enough to earn money, or I am bright, so why aren't I earning X? Well, the reality is there are plenty of people who are incredibly bright. I met a lady this morning. She's got a PhD in physics, and she is a real polymath. She's actually taking her sustainable art exhibition to the Venice Biennale next year. So incredible woman. But is she wealthy? No. Is she financially resilient? No. And that's not a judgment on my part. It's really just showing that it is the behavior and not the smart. So you can be the best thing in the world, but it is those little simple habits, very much like diet and exercise, that really take you in the right direction, and learning more about it. So that's just about all I want to talk about this morning. It's been extremely whistle stop, but I hope you've got a feel for and haven't had an opportunity to reflect on your own money mindset and how you feel about yourself when you're thinking about money, how you feel about money as a tool, and how you can see that it can be a tool for good, both for yourselves and your family, but also the way that you can use it through a business. It is all in those behaviors. So yeah, that's enough from me. I've whittled on for probably a little too long, but thank you so much for listening.